Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome into episode 1 of our new series here, Exploring the CVerse, which is the CornellVerse, as we know. I thought this would kind of be a fun thing to do. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, wanting to kind of get back into playing more of the CVerse, which I do play outside of just the series we have going on the channel, which of course we have WWE, AEW, and WCW from 1998. We have no CVerse series, but eventually I think I would like to do one on the channel. But that may be a little ways down the road. But I thought kind of to build up to that, something that would be fun to do would kind of be just exploring all the companies in the CVerse. I don't know if we'll do every single one of them, but to be honest, like I'm very intrigued by looking at the majority of the companies that are available, and I thought it also may be something for two reasons. It may be for people who already played the CVerse and you're just like, all right, I'm interested in this, and I want to just kind of see what other people's thoughts are on some of these companies and where they stand. What are some positives? What are some negatives of using this company? But also maybe for people like myself who maybe put all the focus on playing the real world mods and want to kind of find a way to really dive into the CVerse a little bit more. So I thought this would be fun to do. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, but we're going to start off with the SWF, the Supreme Wrestling Federation. And you guys probably knew if I was going to do a series like this, I was going to start with the SWF because there are obviously a lot of parallels you could draw, and I think over the years, people have for sure, to WWE and kind of what they run in terms of a product standpoint and all that. But we'll go into all that in a second. But I did want to start with the SWF, who of course no longer the top rank company in the CVerse. And by the way, I just want to point this out. Like I'm not someone that has followed every little tiny detail of the CVerse since its creation, all the way back in the first game that it was implemented in. Like I've played all the games dating back many years, but I can't tell you that I remember every single detail of why this happened or what happened here, but that's what I think makes this fun, is because you can go back into kind of the, looking at the company. You can read the biographies. You can have a much better idea of where things are. And I think for the SWF, what's very interesting about them in this version of the game is that, it kind of can be something where it's almost like, all right, we're coming off this bad stretch, as you see, like the horrible 5-year period, where the USPW is taken over. We'll get to them in another video. But, this is sort of I don't know if you call it a full-on like redemption story or anything, but it is, very interesting now to look at it as Richard Eisen forced into retirement by an IRS investigation. Well, in reality, Vince McMahon forced into retirement by another investigation. So it's just a very interesting parallels you can draw from some of this for sure. And I know people have had fun doing that over the years, but look, it's basically a company, like we said, that's kind of on a redemption arc here, trying to build up kind of a new generation of talent. And so I do think it makes the SWF a very intriguing one to kind of look at. Financially, we see here $30 million to work with. You got no issues from a financial standpoint. Prestige at 84, Momentum at a 78. So, again, this is one of the bigger companies, one of the big three. And you're going to have a chance to succeed for sure. If you want to look at kind of the state of where things are for the SWF, 78 across the board in the United States. You kind of look elsewhere, doing well in Canada. Some of the other places, doing pretty well Mexico-wise, but of course, overseas, not a lot there. So that can be a focus perhaps. You want to grow in some of those areas. But they're doing just fine here. So really, this is the next goal is to be a Titanic company since they're already at large. So I find that interesting to use here. And again, I'm viewing this and I'm kind of just talking through this in terms of how, if I'm going to eventually pick a company to do a save with, these are some of the things I like. These are some things I feel like I would have to work with. There are some other things that maybe I'm like, okay, I don't know how I feel about that. If you do start, you will get the production department penalties in comparison to others. So that's kind of some of the initial things. Now, product-wise, sports entertainment, which again, we talked about some of the parallels with WWE and such. So you've got the face heel strictly enforced, those kind of things, your usual kind of cutoff in terms of your percentages on matches and angles. This is a lot of stuff. Again, if you played with WWE and some of the others, you kind of know this by memory now, probably just from playing all this stuff. There's no women's wrestling. That's worth noting. But just, again, the core product, your entire product is basically just sports entertainment. So that is something you can look at if that appeals to you. If you look at like the event situation, you've got one TV show every week. Listen, I like that idea. You guys know, as someone who's been playing 3 different saves that have all had 2 shows a week, except for us making the eventual change with the WCW one and getting rid of Thunder. I like the idea of just doing one TV show a week. So this is appealing to me for the SWF. You've got your usual pay-per-view every single month. Of course, the biggest one is the Supreme Challenge. That's in July, a season finale event. You do have, a couple options here for TV shows. If you want to run, a brand split or something like that, if you want to have 2 A shows, you've already got, graphics built in and all that for the Uprising and Elite shows. So I do like that idea. But again, just for me personally, where I'm at right now and all the saves I've played, I think doing one TV show a week is my preferred method at this point. So let's look at the titles, where you've got 3 championships. The North American champion here at 65 for the prestige for the North American Championship. Rocky Golden, the one and only in this 91 in terms of the prestige for the heavyweight championship in SWF. The tag team champions here, 60 overall for that. So you got 3 championships for that. Again, I like a company where you don't have too many championships, although again, that's probably kind of counteractive to what I've actually been playing with at this point in my game. Let's just go through some of this here. Let's look at the figurehead. Rocky Golden is, the current figurehead. He's been the figurehead for 6 months, and so not fully established that you don't get any of the bonuses or penalties that we've seen to this point. So that is worth noting there. Our creative section here in SWF, you have Golden, Remo. You've got the one and only, the Chokeslam Chief? Yeah, I was trying to remember his nickname. The Chokeslam Chief. That's one of my favorites in the CVerse. But hey, that's what you can be when you're 6'10", 328 pounds. So the Chokeslam Chief, I love him as one of the top 3. You got a couple of next big thing options here in High Flying Hawaiian and Robbie Wright. You got some hot prospects, a nice group here to work with. And so, that's something. And then you can go through all these and look at that. So momentum-wise, you can see the guys starting with some good momentum. You got several here who are not, but that is something that is at least worth noting. Stables, we'll look at the roster in a second. You got the Rat Pack, a 4-man group, which basically, again, you kind of see the intentions for some of these. I like this. I like this Rat Pack group. Big Brett Starr, Hollywood Brett Starr. He's an interesting one. I think I've used him before when I played in various different ways. Yeah, I was going to say MAW. I remember that. I don't remember if he was playable as MAW. I can't remember. Again, it all runs together for me. But I do remember kind of playing with him in some save I did. That may have been a while ago. But so you've got the Rat Pack as a solid part of the company. You got Unleashed Awesomeness here with quite a graphic for these guys. The 4-person gang. So Wonderfully Smug. That's my favorite type of faction, especially for a heel faction. Wonderfully Smug. So that's a fun group here. Jefferson Stardust, another guy I'm a big fan of, having played the game over the years. He's definitely got the star quality. The sex appeal just reminds me of John Morrison. I don't know if anyone's made that comparison, but this is Johnny Nitro, looks like to me. So I'm not saying that's what they're going for, but he is just, he's someone that just, I look at this, I'm like, there's John Morrison in CVerse form. So there you go. All right, that is kind of where things stand on that. If you want to look at the tag team division, it's an interesting tag team division. I like looking at the experience. Is there experienced teams you can look at here and kind of see what you have to work with? We see some of the initial ones in the 20s, but you do have Cannonball and Stardust here as a 100. The Dallas Cowboys, not the NFL team, but the tag team with Ranger and Marshall Dillon. That's just, those names are fantastic. The Pain Alliance, they're also there. Kurt Laramie, Big Smack's there. Big Smack Scott. So that is something else that you kind of look at. If you look at kind of the coverage, if you're interested in that, you can kind of see, what kind of coverage SWF has here. That is, an interesting note to look at. We'll do the roster last. I'm going to go through some of this other stuff real quick, and then we'll kind of look at the roster. I mean, clearly for me, like there's a lot that appeals about SWF. Again, having only the one show, I like having that per week is something notable. Let's look at the backstage. Backstage rating of 100. You got some negative influences, but you've for the most part got some pretty good stuff here. Don't have a lot of those issues necessarily that are going to cause you problems in a save. It's not like my WCW 1998 backstage, which is just one problem after another. So there is that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that we'll look at before we get to the roster. You'll have the usual stuff. If you play as Booker, you'll get your owner goals and all that good stuff. We can look at alliances. Not in any alliances because we only have the Confederation of the Territory still, and you can kind of see who's involved in that. The 5 groups there, we are not going to be applying for membership if we go with them there. You have your, area battles, all that good stuff. Relationships with the SWF. We know. Negative, we got war with USPW. You've got the war with TCW. That's kind of your, something you can play into your storylines and all that and everything you kind of try to do with all that. But you did see also our developmental situation with Rhode Island Pro Wrestling. So if you go to child companies, you can see Rhode Island Pro Wrestling there, and you've got your roster to work with here of people. And look, I think this is also something that's always interesting when I'm looking at people that I want to potentially work with, see what kind of options are there in the future. If we look at star quality, let's do like a 70. You can see here, you've got a pretty good group of people here that are at a 70, or above in terms of star quality. So if we go down the list here, 73, 76, 76, 84, and look, not everyone's going to be someone, but I like to look at this because when I'm playing a save, I like to see, all right, we got a lot of people with star quality. We can build these people. Whole lot of Marvin here. Look at Marvin. He got an 88 in terms of his star quality here. Not worth any, he ain't over anywhere. But that's an interesting, it's an interesting dynamic if you want to accept that challenge of, all right, how do I get a whole lot of Marvin over? The stud, powerful athlete. How do I get him over? So those are the kind of things that I like to look at, especially like in the CVerse saves. Those can be very appealing because, look, that's the difference too. It's like CVerse for me. I'm playing this versus the real world mods. There is a tendency to try to, book to what actually happened or book to reality in the real world mods, whereas there is no such thing in the CVerse. Like, it's your own world. You can do whatever you want. There's no past history you necessarily have to embrace. You can just make it your own, and I do like that idea on that. But like I said, I really like kind of the star power, especially in the developmental here when we look at some of these people. So that is worth noting on that. And yes, that is kind of our developmental situation with everyone there, and you can kind of go through that and see what you like on that in particular. All right, let's look at the roster, because that is obviously the biggest part of a game, is knowing what you have to work with. And so what I'm going to do is kind of filter this in a couple different ways, because this is how I, again, if I'm playing a CVerse save, I like to kind of look at this and see what I'm working with. So you have your top of the top, like he's your biggest stars. Come on, this guy's been in the game for what? Feels like forever. Just an incredible talent, as we know, in terms of popularity and all that. 97 here on the star quality. And again, I can't say this enough. Look, if you've played the CVerse a lot and all that, I'm saying this just to kind of mention it, but reading the bios for me, I get lost just reading the bios sometimes, and I mean that in a good way. I will just keep reading. I'm like, oh, okay, there's an idea I can work with. So it's like, I read someone's backstory and I'm like, okay, I can build a storyline off of that. I love doing that part because, again, that's not something you get necessarily with the real world mods. It's not the same. Like, here, you're really trying to study who are these people, what is their story. I know, CM Punk's story, and there's just only so much I can use on that sometimes, but like for this stuff, this is just a lot of fun to kind of look at that. Of course, Rocky Golden, the champion, the biggest star there is, 100. We see kind of your overness, so clearly he's the guy leading the way with SWF. He's only 36. He would be, he's the guy, right? Like, he is your guy. And again, the history here is very interesting. The Chokeslam Chief, back to him. And look, it's got the Dark Reaper gimmick that's going well. Good star quality, good menace. different, skills are they can be okay, but popularity you can kind of see that. So there's a look at your major stars there, and then you can go to the star group where you've got some other talent to work with. Age is also something I found interesting. We'll filter that in a second, but you can kind of look through and see that some of the different talents. Of course, Emma Chase is she's an announcer, right? Yeah, color commentary. Yeah, the commentary team's pretty good too, from what I remember with SWF. Mikey James, or not Mikey James, Mikey Lau here. And yes, I was going to say, yes, it used to be Mikey James. I was like, okay, that's right. I was trying to think of that because I remember CZCW. Yes, I used to use that promotion all the time. We'll get to them at some point. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a talented roster. I mean, this is, again, they're the number 2 company in the world for a reason, and there's a lot of talent here. And that's kind of look at your top stars on this. If we kind of filter it by age, which again I think is kind of interesting to do, to see kind of what your roster looks like from an age standpoint. It's like, all right, how many people do we have? Let's say 40 and above. How many talents on the roster do we have 40 and above? And you see, there's quite a few here, and I guess we could filter it by actual wrestlers. How many wrestlers do we have that are 40 or above? So these are kind of the things you can look at. And you see, I mean, this is, I wouldn't say this is a ton, right? Like, this is just maybe a normal amount here. So you've got some aging stars that are pretty over if we just kind of scroll through this and look at the popularity. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to kind of do it like that. And then it's like, all right, well, let's look at that. Then how many people do we have between, let's say, 20 and 40, although, that's kind of a bigger range. But yeah, I mean, you could just, again, these are things that other people may not care about, but I like looking at it this way to give me an idea of kind of where the roster is, and what do I have to work with. So I always find that kind of fun to do. So we have no one 120 years old. We do know that. So got to keep it between 5. Can't be 0. So we don't have any 5-year-olds. We don't have any 120-year-olds. That is official on the SWF roster. So but I like the roster. Like I said, I think that's you've got some star power here, and I guess we could do that as well with star quality on this particular roster. We can see how many people we have to work with on the star quality there, and as you can see, there's quite a few on the SWF. But again, that's not a surprise in terms of where the company's at, and so I kind of like looking at that, and I think there's a lot to work with on this roster. It can be very interesting. Like I said, if you want to play like a WWE-esque save, a lot of people that's very talented on this roster, and so that is something. And then the starting storylines, there are some here. Big money, big problems. You've got Mikey there and Brandon James in that one. So a lot of hot storylines. You kind of know what your demands have to be for a company of this size. It needs to be 70 or above. At least 5 storylines there. Meeting that at the moment, where you've got all kinds of Golden versus the Dark Reaper here. That is obviously the hottest storyline in the company, but you've also got a lot of other stuff that's going well, and so meeting the storyline requirements not happening at the moment. So not because you have to have 5, and there's only, I guess at the moment of starting a save, you would only have 3. This one, and this one. So would need a couple other storylines to hit that point to reach what you need there. So yeah, that's kind of a quick look at the SWF. I think they're one that I would certainly put on my short list because, again, to me, they feel like, I like the idea of the redemption story, maybe the struggling period, getting out of this stretch. You've got new ownership with Jerry and Eric Eisen running it with Richard Eisen out. So, again, there's a lot of similarities, I suppose, you could draw to the current situation in WWE as I'm recording this. But, you have a pretty big competitor to go up against. And you've got, like I said, you've got some people on the roster that are going to be retiring probably in the next year or two, perhaps. And you've got some bigger stars maybe in that role, but you've also got some guys still that are going to lead the way for a while. And like we said, you've got some good underneath talent to work with. And I think there's some good young talent that has a lot of star quality, including a whole lot of Marvin. He is well. He is also in there. We're going to have to sign a whole lot of Marvin somewhere, perhaps, to get him involved with something else. But there you go. There's a look at the SWF. I would love what you think. Have you played with the SWF in TEW 2020? What have you enjoyed about using them? What are some things that have worked well for you? How many? I mean, are you years into the save at this point? I'm just curious what everyone thinks about the SWF and kind of their spot right here in this particular game. So, like we know, I mean, I mentioned there, it's kind of a situation where you're chasing, you're kind of in the chase mode, whereas before, used to be the giant, but now you're chasing USPW, who we will get to in the series, but it's still kind of trying to come out of that period you're in. So that's kind of where you sit if you're the SWF, the second overall promotion in the game at the moment. So there you have it. That is the SWF. And like I said, if you guys enjoyed this, let me know what you think. Other things you'd like to see in this series, let me know. Like I mentioned, my goal is to kind of just dive into some of this, give you a visual overview of these companies, which, yes, you could do this yourself if you wanted to, but I just think it's kind of fun for me to go through, point out what I like about certain things, maybe some things that if I was using it, this is something that I'd be excited about. These are things that we need to work on, and again, I could dive much deeper into this, but I don't want to make this too long for you guys. I just want to give you kind of an idea on where things stand. So we try to kind of go through the main stuff here. We'll do that in each of these episodes in the Exploring the CVerse series, and just kind of give you an idea. Again, let me know what you guys think. I will do this for a lot of these CVerse companies, and to give you kind of an idea of where things stand. I may go through the roster a little bit more on some of these, just to kind of give you a better idea of kind of where things are at, and you can just kind of look at the overall roster and you can see, okay, I like these guys. But again, to me, like I mentioned, all these, to me, I will go through the backstory. If I pick a CVerse, I'm going to go through the backstory, look at all the backstories of these people and be like, okay, there's a story I can use. That gets me excited. Let me put this company on the short list because there's something I can work with here. Jefferson Stardust, I'll tell you, he's already one of the big reasons why I may choose the SWF, because just a cocky heel. You guys know I love a good cocky heel. And so I like the idea of him, and Rocky Golden's there, and there's so many directions you could go in with him. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of good talent, and there's some star quality we can work with if we go with the SWF. But the fallen giant, they want to get back on top, and can you lead them there? That is the big narrative with the SWF. So again, I appreciate you guys, and let me know feedback, what else you want to see in these Exploring the CVerse videos, and we will certainly do that for future episodes of these series. So appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And on the next episode of our Exploring the CVerse series, we will look at another company from the CornellVerse.